Ghana's livestock industry is set for a massive expansion, with the government pouring millions into the acquisition of genetic stock, inclusive of live animals and semen, as in the case of cattle, small ruminants, and swine. But even as plans are moving apace in this regard, there is a major concern at the increasing incidence of theft of livestock. During an interaction with farmers at the launch of the Black Belly Sheep project between Guyana and Barbados in Region 5, farmers had been told by the head of state, President Dr. Irfaan Ali, that while they welcomed the project, urgent attention needed to be placed on curbing the widespread incidence of persons stealing cattle, sheep, and goats, and finding a ready market. It was out of this engagement that the GLDA undertook the formation of a multi-stakeholder task force to tackle head-on the scourge of cattle rustling and other forms of predial larceny. Consultations in this regard were held in Region 5, at which farmers were apprised of the laws in place to deal with the various forms of theft and the fines and imprisonment attached. Speaking to farmers on these constitutional provisions was Attorney-at-Law Mr. Moa Feature, who explained the term predial larceny and what is provided for under the laws of Guyana.
It's the theft of agricultural produce such as livestock, crops, and fish. Of course, our Caribbean neighbors, especially like Jamaica, they would have expanded that meaning to other agricultural inputs such as feed, fodder, and agricultural equipment. So I think by now all our stakeholders here are well aware. Of course, there are many examples. These are some reported cases in Guyana where there have been incidences of cattle rustling. As far back, I know a lot of you would have watched a lot of cowboy movies, so you know that cattle rustling is not something new. It's an age-old problem, but it's something that we need to deal with.
Mr. Chandon updated those in attendance at the consultations on what the law states as it relates to the different types of theft and the penalties attached, most of which attract a monetary fine and/or imprisonment. The lawyer noted that while the law is clear as to the penalties for persons found guilty of cattle rustling and predial larceny in all of its forms, it also speaks to the instances of persons who are found in possession of stolen produce, be it livestock or the meat thereof, fruits and vegetables, etc. They too can be fined and imprisoned once found guilty. Mr. Chandon shared with farmers 5 pieces of legislation that are relevant to curbing the scourge of predial larceny and theft of livestock.
I have 5 pieces of legislation. The first is the Cattle Stealing Prevention Act, and then they have the Produce Protection Act, the Criminal Law Offences Act, Summary Jurisdiction Offences Act, Miscellaneous License Act, and I've added, as Dr. Waldron would have added and said this afternoon, the Crops and Livestock Traceability Bill. So it's not an act as yet, it's something that we are now formulated, but it's important in terms of traceability. Traceability is if we want to nip this problem in the bud, we need to have that in place, the mechanism at least in place.
Mr. Chandon explained that it is a legal requirement for livestock owners to brand their animals in the way stipulated by law. This has to do with the size and formulation of the brand, placement, and the time frame to do so, having bought an animal through a legitimate transaction. He stressed that this is an important tool in the fight against theft, as the law provides safeguards for the owner of a particular brand as it relates to any animal being transported or presented for slaughter.
So you need to understand the whole concept about branding, because branding is important. And of course, I'm happy that Commander, you were here this afternoon, because the police force has a very important function as it relates to predial larceny, and especially as it relates to cattle rustling. Especially as it relates to branding, because the Commissioner of Police, in the first instance, is supposed to be issuing a notice for 12 consecutive Saturdays, and that notice would be requested information as it relates to the type of brand that each livestock farmer has. So you're supposed to approach the commander and indicate so in writing, what is your brand? So the That's where it starts. The whole branding system starts there. And after you submit that information, your details, what kind of cattle you own and what kind of brand you have, that is submitted to the commissioner. And after 6 months, after that notice is published, the commissioner of police then publishes 2 lists, one in alphabetical order and one in numerical order. And I want you to understand that because that is how you would know if it would be listed legally, right? Unless you go to the commissioner and give that information, your brand would not be legal. Because after then, the commissioner will then need to publish those lists. And your name and your brand is supposed to be in that list. If it's not in that list, well then you have an illegal brand, right?
Farmers were reminded that under the law, newborn calves must be branded within 6 months of their birth, and any animal purchased illegally must be branded within 28 days, failing which that farmer can be charged and fined up to $15,000. This is also the case for meat being transported, as there must be documentation from the GLDA and from the Veterinary Public Health Department of the Ministry of Health. The meat must also be accompanied by the carcass of the animal from which the meat is taken, clearly showing the brand of the owner. Mr. Chandon disclosed that there is an annual fee that a livestock owner can pay to the police that allows for him or her to be informed once animals with the registered brand is presented at a police station or to a butcher.
There's an annual fee that can be paid where the brand holder could be notified. And they can be notified, for example, if animals are let me say, if animals are moving from one jurisdiction to the other, they're supposed to notify the police. So if cattle are moving from region 4 to region 5, they're supposed to go to the police station, inform the commander or the person in charge of the police station that we are moving this cattle from point A to point B, right? So that is why that notification, that annual fee becomes important, because that annual fee would then, the police would have that list with all the persons that would have paid up that annual fee for notification. So if any cattle passes through with that particular brand, they would notify that person, that brand holder. Additionally, if a butcher is about to slaughter some cattle, he's also supposed to notify the police that he's going to slaughter that animal, right? But it comes along with that annual fee that you need to pay. That would, well, I believe it might be a minimal. Dr. Wadri, you could tell me otherwise. Is it minimal?
Not really.
All right, but it's important that that annual fee is paid. So even if the butcher is to tell, he's supposed to notify the police, I'm going to slaughter. And once that brand comes in, the police will then notify the brand holder. Right? So there are checks and balances as we go along.
The lawyer basically sought to educate farmers on the laws, both as it relates to the fines and other penalties for persons found guilty of theft of animals and other agricultural produce, and also as it relates to their responsibilities as cattle owners and how important the latter was in helping the police apprehend those found illegally transporting cattle or meat. He said that under the law, the police have special powers.
Of course, the police have special powers. For example, if they believe that there is illegal cattle being slaughtered, they have the power to search and enter those premises. They don't need a warrant, right? They have that special power, right? I looked specifically for that to see whether they would need a warrant, but they don't need a warrant. They could just proceed to go on the premises and search and look for all the evidence that they require. The next thing is that the police can also approach any butcher, and if he cannot give any reasonable account for where the meat or the hide came from, that butcher would be liable to a fine of $25,000, not less than $50,000, and 4 years imprisonment. Right? So, Commander, I hope you're taking some notes, right? Because this is serious business.
The presentation also addressed the penalties as it relates to persons found trespassing in a farm or found with produce he or she cannot prove was lawfully acquired. The consultation hosted by the GLDA towards the establishment of the task force on cattle rustling also allowed for contributions of livestock owners, many of whom blamed the police for not enforcing the law as outlined by Mr. Chandan.
I will blame the police officer for 50% of the crime. Concern stealing. I'm not ashamed to say so, the commander is right here. And I will give a living example. 1 month ago, I sold 3 animals from their barrier. When my skin got wet, it was raining. So look, we're going to meet at Weldon with my brand and the ID to pass these animals. The guy said he's going to stop at Litchfield and wait me. When we meet Litchfield, we don't see the canter. We have cardiac, he's a man now, he got everything past, he got like. Now that could be stealing animal. Any kind of animal, how the pass.
My suggestion on this, I attend a lot of workshop on larceny with the crime chief, magistrate, lawyers, whatever. I was invited through GLDA. My thing is, if we put a penalty on the butchers, the stealing would ease. Because if you don't have a buyer, you wouldn't go and get somebody animal. If I am taking my neighbor duck, as Mr. Nicholson said, and nobody am buying it, I would go again? No, I wouldn't. And I always stressed on put the penalty on the butchers and the buyers. If we don't have them to buy these animals, the people wouldn't go steal these animals.
When the Honorable President was here on Sunday, we had people getting up and saying how many animals they lost. And those are the people that thief in the people's cows. A man claimed that he lost 500 head of cow. His father didn't have 500 head of cow. And he's selling every week. If Mr. Simon would check at the police station where you put in a notice of intent to slaughter, you would see how many animals are slaughtered with his brand. So he got more cows more than Happy Bull and Kissoon and everybody together. Because he's slaughtering every week and he's still got to lose 500 head. We have, I can't remember, I'm from Georgetown, but they've been living in Bordeaux for forever. And I can't remember anybody getting locked up, getting charged, or getting sentenced for cattle rustling in Bordeaux. An individual was caught red-handed with my buffalo, the head, the foot, the beef, and nicely shotgun and everything. And he didn't get the day in jail. He was. I have evidence in my phone where he's telling me he's going to give me some bulls to finish the matter in the police station, and that's the man that get off. And he accusing people of thieving.
In his contribution at the consultation, following the submissions by participants, CEO acting of the GLDA, Dr. Dwight Waldron, pointed out that cattle rustling not only poses an economic danger to the industry, but also a clear and present danger to the health of those persons who purchase and consume stolen meat, which would not have undergone the examinations that would clear them for human consumption.
You guys now understand what I was saying, and I was looking at some pictures just now that was shared with me of meat, beef, that was intercepted. And when you look at the level of congestion in that meat, all I'm seeing is bacteria taking that over and food poisoning. That's all I'm seeing. But what usually saves us is either broth or pepper pot. So we boil the living daylight out of wherever is in there. So that is what usually saves us. But we need to start thinking straight. On that same point, with respect to inspection of the meat, currently that's not the mandate of GLDA. That is the sanitary inspectors or the Environmental Protection Agency. The system is somewhat disjointed. That is why we have the Food Safety Authority. So all those arms would now come under one umbrella to deal with ante-mortem and post-mortem inspection. So you don't have to worry about they'll try and come in, then you have to wait on somebody else. Whoever turn up is going to be dealing with both the ante-mortem and post-mortem inspection.
Earlier, Commander of Region 5, Mr. Corlett Simon, had expressed his force's commitment to enforcement of the laws relative to the proper functioning of the livestock industry, especially as it relates to cattle rustling.
Cattle rustling, from the time I've come to this region in 2020 August, has been a bugbear on the police, or a dispute over cattle ownership has been a bugbear on the police. I trust that after today's session, that going forward, as Dr. Walton said, there will be total honesty, or a 99% honesty. And I'm thankful you also pointed out that the legal markings for animal is branding your animal. As stated in the laws of Guyana, I think it's subsection 8 of the Cattle Rustling Act. Cattle Rustling Act, yes, correct.
Since the consultations were held, work has been ongoing, and as of a week ago, the terms of reference for the now established task force in cattle rustling was presented to the Minister of Agriculture. Minister Zulfikar Mustafa has since indicated that the way is now clear for the work of the task force to begin in terms of curbing the widespread issue of larceny of cattle and other livestock and agricultural produce.
What we are looking at, a task force have already been formed since the President would have announced at the Black Belly Sheep project that he launched in Region 5 some weeks ago, that Region 5 will be our main hub, our center in terms of developing the livestock industry. I've asked GLDA to work along with the law enforcement agency and also the farmers to bring them together so that we can form a group to curb this serious problem that are affecting farmers in Region 5 and different parts of the country. A task force have already been set up. They have a number of meetings and they are moving apace. I know for a fact that certain things I can't mention on camera, but the task force is working seriously with the law enforcement agencies so that we can deal with this issue. I know for a fact that many farmers have reported that they have suffered this problem, and we are working very, very closely with them to ease this burden. We'll have a number of patrol, we'll form a number of groups in these areas so that we can curb this serious problem that are affecting the farmers in that area.
Persons convicted of predial larceny in all of its forms will be made to face the full extent of the law, inclusive of maximum fines and jail time for repeat offenders. The task force will be targeting butchers who are known to be in the practice of receiving and selling meat, knowing same to have been illegally obtained and slaughtered, most times in unhygienic conditions, creating a public health risk.